Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and we do watercolor tutorials. Well, I do. We do other tutorials too. I guess I should mention that. Lettering.
We do several kinds.
We do several kinds.
2 kinds.
By several, we mean 2, watercolor and lettering. Today we are doing the Galaxy Wolf.
Oh!
That was great. That was so good. Okay. And we are going to do this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is I'm just going to kind of lay down the darker values, like around the ears, around the mouth, that kind of stuff, just kind of defining the area. Second step, we are going to do our multicolored wash. Third step, we are going to define the shapes a little bit more, and by that I mean do another layer to like do some fur shapes, things like that. Fourth step, we will do our stars, so our white splatters. And the fifth step, just any last details that we need to finish off or to make it kind of tighten it up at the end. So for this project, we do have an outline. It comes in your subscription box and your kit, but if you don't have either of those, you can download it for free off of our website. Just find the Galaxy Wolf project, click on the button that says outline, download and print. That's all you gotta do. To transfer your image onto watercolor paper, take your graphite paper. It is in your box in the postcard. You should know this because this is week 4, so they should know this by now.
Unless you bought a kit and you've never bought a kit before.
You're right. Sorry. It will be in there folded up like this. And you are going to do glossy, shiny, dark side down. And I taped my outline to my paper so it doesn't move while I'm tracing. And then just take a pencil or a pen or the back end of a paintbrush or a marker or whatever you want to use and just trace. And whatever mark you make or pressure you put on this, it will transfer over. Now, graphite paper, if you press hard, can be really dark. And watercolor is transparent. So if you do not want super dark lines to show through, don't push down super hard when you're tracing. Do a really light touch. I'm gonna do a darker tracing than what I would usually do just so you guys can see it better on the camera. But just try and get it as light as possible. What's really helpful is a felt tip marker actually, because the point is not such a hard point like a ballpoint pen or a pencil. That's a thing, right? A ballpoint pen?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Well done.
Thank you. Because it's a softer tip naturally, it's just gonna be a lighter pressure naturally. You can also get a light box from our website, which some people prefer to use because they struggle with the graphite paper. It's like 18 bucks, which I think is a steal, so you can find that at letsmakeart.com. I'm out of breath from talking so much, so fast.
Yeah, take it easy. Just finish that outline.
Keenan's like, calm down. And again, what I would like to say about outlines, and I kind of try and say this just about every time, they're just a general idea for you. It's if you forget a mark after you take off your outline and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to trace it, not a big deal, just eyeball it. Also, if you paint outside of these edges, that's also not a big deal. It's just general shapes for you to reference while you're painting.
Like the Pirates Code.
That is exactly like the Pirates Code. I don't, yes. Sure. Okay. Now, the colors we are using are, actually I'll use this. We have red rose. Wait, or is it rose red?
Rose red.
Rose red, I always mess that up. Rose red. Which is like a pinkier red. So if you have a red that's orange, if you're using your own colors, you are going to want to make sure that your red leans more to the pink or purple side than to the orange side. If it leans to the orange side and we mix blue with it, which is what we're going to do, you will get mud. Okay, and we have space blue. And we have black. And we have our white, our bleed-proof white that came in with our November box. So I'm just going to put that there.
Perfect.
The paintbrushes that we're using are around 6 and around 2. These are the same paintbrushes we use for every project, just about. So they're great. You can find them on our website. We sell them in a bundle with this paint palette if you like this. I like it because I like to mix my colors and it gives me all of this room to mix. So that is why I like this Butcher Tray palette. Now, if you do have a larger brush, you are more than welcome to use that on this project since we're filling in this whole wolf with a wash. So a larger round or even a wash brush would be good if you have it. If you don't, you can do it with a round 6. I'm going to be using a round 6. Okay, warm-ups. No, our oath. What am I doing?
Good save.
Yeah, if you can raise your right hand. And repeat after me, I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
And I promise not to compare my work.
Promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun.
Can we do the little ding? Maybe not every time.
Just occasionally.
Just occasionally, just to remind
month.
people.
Yeah.
Remind people of that one time.
Yeah.
That was a good time. Okay. So, what we are going to go over for our warm-ups today is I'm just going to show you how to like mix purple essentially. So we have our red rose and our blue. Now when you're doing this kind of like sky wash that we'll be doing for our galaxy sky, I'm just going to kind of go over how we're doing it. So it's a color transition and mixing colors. So I like to start with like blue. And the biggest thing is remember to add water to get different values, okay? So you can use water and spread out a lot of the color that you already have. And then I'm going to pull some red off to the side and some blue and mix that together, and I will start getting purple. And then you can just start kind of dropping that in, using water to spread it. You can put some blue in there again. I just kind of want you guys to practice this kind of technique of just being kind of messy, I guess, essentially is what it is, not having to be so precise. This would also be considered wet on wet since we're dropping in water and paint on an already wet surface. Now, the other thing about color mixing that I want to go over is depending on how much color you mix will then give you a different result. So if I use just a little bit of the red and mostly blue, that's the kind of purple I'm going to get. If I use about an even amount, that's the purple I'm going to get. And if I use mostly the rose red and a tiny bit of blue, that's the purple I'm going to get. And you can get everything in between. So I just want to point that out to you, because if you want to have like hints of really bright pink in your galaxy sky, make sure you're really using that rose red. If you want to keep it more the blue purple color, then just use a little bit. And then let's go over value. So value is all about the lightness and the darkness of a color. If you want a darker value in watercolor, you're going to be using a lot of paint and less water. So here, my brush is clean. I'm picking up a lot. So you can see I'm putting my entire paintbrush in the paint. Okay? I'm bathing it. I've also called it baptizing.
This is my personal favorite.
My personal favorite too, but I try not to use it that much.
Might be a little sacrilegious.
Okay. And then you paint with that. That's your dark value. You hit it a couple of times in the water, boop, boop, paint with that, and you'll see that it's going to keep getting lighter the more water you add to it. Now, and this is a huge reason why I love the Butcher Tray palette. Let's say that you're not doing a transition and you just want to start with the light value. How do you start with the light value? Well, have your brush clean, and then just go along and barely put your paintbrush in the paint. So I'm just using the tip of my paintbrush. And that's how you can start with the light value. Okay? So this is why, for me, the Butcher palette is my favorite, because it's a lot easier to just like pull and get lighter values. Where if you have those ones that are the wells, it's a little bit harder for me to control how much paint I'm picking up because all of the paint is just together in a ball. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm not convinced that you do, but that's okay.
I've only ever used the butcher trick.
Keenan's like, I know no other way. All right. Now we're ready to paint. So we're going to do our darker values first. So we're going to kind of go in the ear, kind of here you can see that we have like almost black. Behind the ear, our eyes, and our nose and our mouth. So I just want to kind of like define those shapes now. So I'm going to grab my blue, and I'm going to mix a little bit of black in there because I want it to be nice and dark. So I'm going to do the shadow behind the ear because we want to communicate that the ear is not fused to the body, it's sticking out. So when something sticks out, there's going to be a shadow behind it to show that it's on a different plane. So we're going to put a shadow behind the ear. And then in the center of the ear, so I'm just kind of following these marks from my outline. And then for the eye and the mouth and the nose, I actually use just black, and I'm going to use my round 2 for this since it's a smaller area. So I'm going to kind of follow my outline. And then my nose, I don't want to paint the entire thing black because it has different values on that too. So I'm just kind of painting like the top here and then the bottom and leaving the space kind of where the nostril would be. And I'll go back and blend that in a minute.
I've decided that this wolf is actually sleeping.
Yeah?
He's just laying down.
It totally looks like
now
that.
I can't see it
like,
otherwise.
I cannot unsee it. It's like passed out, like drool.
Yeah.
It's having the best time sleeping.
That's why it's a galaxy. He's dreaming.
So the inside of the mouth, I'm doing black. Okay. Now that's pretty much all I'm going to define now, and we'll define the rest of the areas in step 3. Now I'm ready to do my washes. So a couple things that I want to bring attention that I did on purpose is I have darker values on the top part of the head than I do on the bottom part. And the reason why I did that is if you look at the coloring of a wolf, usually they have like a brown or a stronger color at the top, so along the ridge of their nose, the top of their head, and then usually the bottom of their mouths and their chest are a white fur. So the way I communicated that part is I made sure that the values were light on the right side of my wolf and my values were dark on the left, just to kind of match the coloring of the animal a little bit more. So as you're painting, you might have to do a couple layers on this top left part to communicate that. Now you don't have to communicate that. If you want to make it all one value, you can. It's just kind of fun to like bring in the actual elements of how they are, their like patterns on their coloring and stuff like that. It's just fun to bring them in, but you don't have to, you know, it's your life, it's your painting, you can do whatever you want.
It's my life. Is that a song?
Wait, are you singing Gwen Stefani?
I don't know.
Sing more of that song.
That's all I know. Every time you say it's your life, I'm like, yeah, it's my life. But I don't know what the song
There's
is.
a Gwen Stefani song that's like, it's my life.
That's it.
Don't you isn't that how it goes? Desiree's like, yes, that's it. What's the name of that song? Is good
Huh.
guess. Maybe that's
What
it.
a great title.
I want to tell Alexa to play it for our viewers, but
She's listening now.
I don't know the title of it.
I don't either. I'll find it.
Okay. Okay. Caught in the- Now I just have that song stuck in. Oh, there is a Bon Jovi song. Okay, there's a Gwen Stefani song too, though. Okay, so after a brief intermission, that line is in both the Bon Jovi and No Doubt song.
Yeah.
So
Feel free to look them up.
feel free to look them up. We can't play them for, copy.
Question.
Yeah.
Did you touch your eye?
Yeah, is there black?
Underneath. It's like a spot.
Okay, let me look. I've noticed that when I laugh, my eyes water and then my makeup smears. And it's a problem because in every tutorial I have this like black
What
dot.
if we just let it roll one time? Let's do that for
Oh, I'm sure
should've
we'll
done
find
that.
it in other areas.
We should have done that for Halloween. Where just like you giggle and then just tears come out your face and there's makeup everywhere.
And I'm just like crying.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, are you happy or sad? What's going on?
Why are you
Okay, thanks, Keenan. All right. So, we're moving on to step 2. We're getting back to painting, which is why we're here, in case you forgot. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little bit of black with my blue because I want to make sure I'm doing a darker value on the top part. And I'm just going to start putting that in, kind of following the edge here. Now, and then I'm going to use water to spread it out. And don't worry, I'll be doing a couple of layers. And this one you want to work fairly quickly if you can. And I'm not avoiding the eye, but I'm not just smearing it back and forth because I want it to stay sharp. If you lose the shape of your eye, you can always do another layer when this is dry. Okay, now I'm going to start bringing in some pink and purpley elements. So a lot of times I just like to put the color down and then just spread the color out using water. Now you can also see that around this heavy shadowed part on the ear, I went with the lighter value, and that's because they have white fur around that ear. So I'm kind of leaving that in there to mimic the patterning of the colors. And it's okay if you got to I'm doing another layer on the top part specifically to get that dark value. Okay. Now, I don't think I used salt on this project, but we did do a nebula project where we used salt. And if you like that effect, you are more than welcome to use salt on this project. It's up to you. And you can do water drops to kind of add to the texture with different blooms. Just keep on going. Again, it's going to be a darker value behind the ear because we want to communicate that they're on different planes. And I'm going to kind of blend into that line that I initially put out in step 1. Because I want it to transition. I don't want it to be an outline. Oh dear. Okay, you can see I got some water drops on my paper. I can show you a couple of things. So right away I can just take my paper towel and lift. If you have a magic eraser, those will come right off with a little magic eraser. I wonder if I have one handy. I don't think I do. I'll have to find one. But usually just lifting up with water is enough. Or you can just be okay, now there's splatters all over my painting now. I have to do that sometimes too. So as you can see, everybody makes those kinds of mistakes and accidents, and you just kind of roll with it. Roll with it or learn how to hide it.
Bleed-proof white would hide it.
Bleed-proof white would hide it. You can do a couple layers of that.
Are those fresh raspberries?
Do you want to see what not rotten raspberries look like?
I feel like I know what they look like.
I sent Keenan to the store. Keenan's like, you want anything from the store? And I was like, yes, raspberries, please. And he brought back the moldiest thing of raspberries I've ever seen. I was like, Keenan, there is white mold all over this. Did you not open it up?
I looked through the packaging of the first box and said nope. So I grabbed the second box, assuming that it would be better. And I did not check.
So I promptly threw those raspberries away. Sorry about that. I still have to pay you for those, actually.
Yeah, no worries.
Should I pay you for them since it was your fault they were rotten? I don't know.
I don't know. Now I'm not sure.
Now it's like a question of ethics. What's the right thing to do?
I love ethics questions.
Okay, now I put in some water drops on this area, and you can see that when you put in water drops, it's create blooms, and it pushes the pigment out a little bit. Now, sometimes that look is really cool. Sometimes, though, it can become distracting if it's too much, if it's the value and the contrast is too heavy. So sometimes what I'll do is if I'm like, man, that's just bringing too much attention in a way that I don't want it, I'll just blend it like so. So then it's not so like contrasty. Aggressively contrasty. Yeah, that's a good word. Just kind of smooth it out. Like down here, I probably could have gotten away with it, but since it's on the face of the wolf, it can then be confusing of what's actually going on. So you guys can just decide how much you want that and for yours. Totally up to you. So again, just kind of putting color down and then using water to kind of blend it all together, transition it. Yes, you will have blooms, all of that stuff. And you can see I'm focusing on staying really light on my right-hand side where there would be white fur. Okay. Okay, that is starting to look pretty good. I am doing a little bit of a shadow down here right underneath the chin because again, that chin would have, that chin and that bone structure is coming out from the body. And so we kind of want to show that it's on a different plane coming out. So that's why we're doing a little bit. It's the same when you're drawing or painting a person. If you look at a profile and you can see, I don't have a very strong jawbone, but usually you want to like do value differences between the chin and the neck to show that they're on different planes, because then that defines the shape of the jaw. If it was up to me, I would be like that, but I don't have that. I feel like my neck is, I just don't have a very strong jawbone. So
your head out farther.
I wish I had a really defined jawbone.
Same.
But I don't. So then it's really easy for me to do things like this all the time.
To quote Brock's wife Molly, she looks like a thumb when she does that. I think that's hilarious.
100%.
It's so funny.
It's like thumb face.
Yeah.
But I have a tendency to like naturally do this. So even when I don't, especially when I laugh, I'm like, in a lot of photos. And a lot of screenshots that Keenan has.
I've seen so many.
Keenan, you guys have probably seen this a lot. Sorry about that. It's just the way my face is, and that's okay. All right. So I'm going to do another layer of the dark blue on the top part just to really, really define it. You might not need to. You might have been able to get it darker on your first try, or maybe you don't mind that it's not as dark. So again, I can't see your painting, so you guys kind of get to decide what you need to do on yours. Okay. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of pink purple down here. Still keeping it a light value, but just for color variation, so it's not all that same light blue. Now, another tip. Now I'm painting on a pad here. So one of my sides is glued down on my pad. If you're painting this at home on loose sheets, and it's starting to warp a lot, something that might help is just taping it down. So you can tape it down at this point, or if you were to do this again, you can tape it down at the beginning. I'm sorry, I didn't say this earlier, but that helps because we're using a lot of water on this, and that's why it's warping the way that it is.
You know how hindsight is so useful?
Yep.
What is, whenever you give a tip after the fact, what would that, is that you discovering, is that you using hindsight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or is that like a hind speak?
Well.
Because that makes me feel uncomfortable.
I don't like hind speak.
I don't like hind speak either. But that should be one of your superpowers.
I'm really good at telling you what you should do much later
Yes.
than when I should have said it. It's a problem I
You
have.
could probably say hindsight. That works.
Yeah, it does. I'm just smoothing out the nose. Okay. And then there's a little extra shadow on the top of this. Now I'm going to try and leave a little bit of a white line in between the black mouth and the lip. I pretty much painted over it, but this is the wonderful thing about bleed proof white that we have in there is we can just put that highlight back in. And that's really just to, again, communicate this part is the inside of the mouth, this part is the outside, the lip part. So sometimes just by doing little highlights here and there kind of help with things like that. Okay, that's step 2. That's it. You guys are doing great. Okay, now we're going to move on to step 3. We're going to define some of these shapes. And by that, you can see here that I kind of have some fur textures going on. And I just did those in a darker value. And that was just to kind of, again, point to the animal a little bit more, point out some of the features of the animal to communicate that a little bit better. Is it necessary? No, but it's just a fun little detail. So I'm actually going to switch to my round 2 for like these edge pieces. And I'm going to do kind of a blue. Now I don't want to go straight black because if I do black right against that really light value, those values are too far away from each other that it would make this part seem lighter and create more of a hard outline, which is not what we really want. So I'm going to be doing just blue mixed with maybe a tiny bit of black or maybe a tiny bit of purple. And I'm just going to kind of go and follow the outline and just do some, I'm calling these kind of fur textures. So it's like that is how the edge is on this. I'm going to define that jawbone a little bit more. And here, if you can still see your outline, you can follow some of your outline. If you cannot still see your outline, just eyeball it. It's not a big deal. Alexis, can you please? I'm just kidding.
Please stop getting comfortable. This painting makes me think of 2 movies.
Okay.
Both Disney. I think. Actually, I take that back. One's Disney for sure.
Okay.
Balto
Oh, yeah.
and Iron Will.
Iron Will.
That is a classic.
I don't even know what you're talking about when you say that.
Iron Will is a wonderful tale about a young boy whose father passes away because they live in a very cold area and they use sleds and dogs to transport things and themselves and stuff.
Yeah.
And his dad passes away in frozen water and his dogs don't respect his son, and the son's name is Will. And it's about a race. Oh, it's on Disney Plus. So Childhood favorite.
Is it animated or is it
Nope.
real? Okay.
It's real. It's visceral.
Is visceral the right word?
I have no idea.
Okay. And then I'm going to do some fur textures kind of on the left-hand side here. Now, fur textures, I have some on the outline for you, so I'll pull up my outline in case you can't see what I'm doing through my wash very well. But they're kind of just, how do I say this? They're not straight lines. Okay, this is what your brain is going to tell you to do. Let me get my scratch paper. Your brain is going to be like, fur. I know what that is. And then it's going to tell you to make those same exact marks across the entire thing because you're like, fur is just lots of little hairs. So I just got to do lots of tiny little lines everywhere and that will communicate fur. Except that's not actually how we see things when we pay attention to it. Little pieces tend to gather together. So that's kind of what I'm painting here. It's like chunks of the little hairs put together and they kind of create an uneven line. I'll do some like thicker ones down here. But you can see I have long ones, I have short ones. Now some of these are blending out a little bit because my wash underneath is wet. That's okay. I don't mind that much. If it's bothering you, just wait for your painting to be totally dry before you do some of these textures. And the reason why we don't do it across the entire thing is because if we did, it would actually flatten our image. Now there are some photorealist painters out there who actually do paint all the tiny little things and it looks very realistic, but that is a very specific skill that takes a lot of time and one that I actually don't possess. So I try and communicate it in a way that still gives you the feel of the texture but not having to do the entire thing. I actually don't know how photorealists get that sort of detail, but it's amazing. And so yeah, we're just kind of doing it here and there. I'm actually going to do a darker wash on this left-hand side. Just felt like it needed to be darker down there. Maybe a little up here.
So I looked up the word visceral.
Yeah.
I still don't know what it means.
Okay.
And I don't know if I used it right.
What does it say?
So it says, felt in or as if in the viscera.
Well, that is not helpful at all.
No, and then it says not intellectual, which is what I'm feeling right now. So I think I know how to use it now.
Like, I don't know why, but I associate visceral with,
Dreams?
no, the opposite. So really tangible and very human. So like if, like a super, okay, like that image of Brock where,
Yes.
okay, like the detail of the muscle like popping out and like that really.
You mean the cropped picture? Let's clear that up real quick. The cropped picture of Brock on the
Should we
wall.
actually bring that up? Let's bring that on.
This is very appropriate.
So you guys just know what we're talking
This is
about.
very work related.
This is hanging by Brock's desk. Can they see that pretty well? Yeah. So I feel like the super defined muscles and that reminds me of something that's visceral. I don't know if that's correct.
Well, I'm reading the definition and I don't know what it means.
That can't be the right definition.
It can't be from this dictionary.
Google it. Google it on your phone. Maybe you'll get a better. Maybe you'll get a better response.
Definition of better instructions. Relating to the viscera. The visceral nervous system.
Okay, it says when something's visceral, it means you feel it in your gut. So
Yeah.
it's something like
Instinctual.
Oh, it's instinctual.
Relating to deep inward feelings rather than to the intellect. So I think I could use visceral for the iron will.
So I'm wrong. Yeah. Yeah, so visceral, I always associate it with something very like, ugh. But I guess that's more...
Well, it is that.
Instinctual.
Deep inward feeling. So it's still like you just...
It's like your gut feeling.
Like gut feelings.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. That was vocabulary lesson with Sarah and Keenan and Alexis. Okay. So that was step 3. I put in my, I defined my shapes a little bit more, defined some fur textures. Again, can people tell that it's a wolf without these fur textures? Yeah, they can. So if, fur textures is not something that you feel comfortable doing or strong about, I'm sure you can leave it out and people can still tell that this is either a wolf howling or sleeping. So you're fine. Okay. Now before I do my white splatters, I'm going to finish off my nose. So I kind of just want to leave a little edge. So I'm going to use just water to kind of blend, and I just want to leave a slight edge on where that nostril would be. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Okay. And then let's do our splatters. Now before I do my splatters, I'm going to grab my 2 and put in this white edge on the lip because I forgot to leave it. Okay. And that is the beauty of bleed-proof white right there. So when we do splatters, first you want to make sure that the area is clear of anything expensive because paint is going to go everywhere. Then I'm going to grab my round 6. I'm going to get it wet, and then I'm going to grab some white. And then I'm going to hit my paintbrush off my finger and paint will splatter. Now, these are small splatters. If you want bigger splatters, use a bigger brush or have your brush be more wet. Now, but to give you a little warning, if your brush is too wet and you go to splatters, then you can end up with some huge splatters. So sometimes I'll test it first before I put it down to see if it's just way too big. Because some blotches you can get that are like just huge. And you're like, oh shoot, now that doesn't look like a star anymore. And again, they're going to show up better on the dark values than on the light. And after I splatter, I sometimes like to do a few big ones here and there. And you can just put those in with a thing and then smear them. So it's like they're shooting stars. Okay, I'm going to do a few more splatters on the bottom of the jaw. You can also use a toothbrush, like an old toothbrush if you have like an extra one. You can get your toothbrush in the paint and then just run your thumb across it, and that will also do some splatters, some great splatters. Okay, now our very last step is just any tightening details. So one thing I'm going to work a little bit more on is the ear. Looking at this, I want a little bit of a darker value near the tip and a little bit more color. Now there's not a lot of paint there, so white paint there, so I don't feel nervous painting this area. However, if I was going to try and paint this area, I would kind of pause first because this bleed-proof white is going to give an opaque color. So if I started to blend this out, it would turn all the colors around it like a lighter blue and be opaque. So just be aware of how much paint is in the places that you're going to kind of adjust and try and work around it a little bit so it just doesn't get all of that white everywhere. And but at the same note, if there's some areas that it's like too much white paint happened, and you want to like blend it out, you can just do another layer on top and blend out some of those splatter dots if it's just too much. Do another layer here. Okay. Okay. That's it. Good job. Good job, everybody. I can't wait to see how yours turned out. Because again, we mixed these colors. We did some splattering. We did some loose washes. We did wet on wet. Everyone's is going to look very different from each other. It's going to be fun to see the different textures that kind of emerge. So if you're on Instagram, you can tag us at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. On Facebook, you can use the same tags, or we have a wonderful Facebook community called Let's Make Art Watercolor that's separate from our business page, and it is for the sole purpose of you guys being able to share your work with each other and see what other people are making and that kind of stuff, because when you have a community that's supportive around you, it's so much easier to do something and try it, and it's just fun to connect with other people. So that's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And if you need any of these supplies that we use today, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. And I think that's all I gotta say. Good job, you guys. Bye.